everybody. This is Alex Patton, and today I am going to open up a new show. It's a podcast, and it's going to be called I Told You So, because a lot of what I'm going to cover is things that I predicted and posted on my Facebook page, and they've actually came to life. Most of the information I've gathered here is from a paper called The Epic Times. And those of you who don't know, it was founded in the United States in 2000 by Chinese Americans who had fled the Communist Party in China to basically have the ability to produce accurate information, believable information, and not something that a government was forcing them to report on. Now, I've seen a lot of articles from other news sources trying to discredit Epic Times and saying that they're a far-right paper, but they're really not. They technically are very impartial. They don't have any kind of political connections. They're not funded by any corporations. And that's the big difference. I mean, you look at like CNN or MSNBC, the biggest thing about them is they have these things called ads. And those ads are from companies who pretty much pay for their airtime and their papers. So they kind of have a tit for tat thing where they are responsible for, it's kind of like a lobby. They feel like they are obligated to do things that those companies would approve of. So the Epic Times is, it covers 21 languages and is in 33 countries so far. On this show, I'm going to attempt the best I can to be impartial and not one-sided politically, even though most of you know I am a conservative. I believe in the Republican Party and the stance and the political platform that they adhere to, because just personally that lines up more with my beliefs. And there's a lot of misconception about that, the Republican Party and what they do. And a lot of people claim that they're racist, and there's no factual data for that. Actually, there's more factual data for the other side being racist. But like I said, I don't want to get into that. Mostly the things that I believe that the Republicans are about is a strong central government that is limited in power by the Constitution. And that is the way the Constitution's written, and that's the way it should be. The government should be. A government that forces you to purchase things or limits what you can purchase is not a republic. It's not a government that is governed by a constitution. That's more of a communist, socialist government, and I could go on all day about socialism. A lot of people do not really understand what socialism is, and I make a lot of references to Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party in Germany as socialists, and a lot of people say, "Oh no, you're not. That's not. They weren't socialists. They were fascist." Well, yeah, they were. Hitler was a fascist in the end once he gained control, but leading up to that, he was very socialist. He even admitted several times that he was a socialist, and he did get some ideas from Marx, but he didn't fully agree with Marxism because he did not like communists. So there's two different beliefs there as far as communism and socialism, and basically both of them are totalitarian government that preys on certain people and uplifts other people. So let's with that being said, I want to go ahead and get started and dive into our first topic of today, which is one that I've been researching a lot about and making a lot of decisions for myself personally, and that is the coronavirus vaccine. Okay, so I'm not sure if many people are aware, but the coronavirus is a man-made virus. It was initially a virus only present in bats, and a lab in Wuhan in China had a scientist there who believed or was pretty much researching gain of function. And what she did was she took this virus that the bats had from a cave. She got the bats from a cave near Wuhan. She took the bats and took the virus and implanted proteins in that virus so that it could be transmissible to humans. That's what gain of function is. When you take a vaccine or a virus and you increase its infectiousness into another animal. Sometimes that happens in nature, like if a bat is infected with the virus and they defecate on something a pig is eating, the pig eats it, then the pig slaughtered and people eat the pig. I mean, there you go. That was on the movie Contagion, I think. That is actually possible. And it's crazy with that movie because it correlates so much with what we're seeing now. Of course, coronavirus is not as deadly as they make it out to be, whether you believe that or not. I've actually heard a doctor tell me directly that coronavirus and the cold are very similar, and they are treated the same way. It's a virus. There's no way to treat a virus other than tell you to go home, get plenty of rest, and drink plenty of fluids. Every doctor you go to is going to tell you that. Now, a bacterial infection, they can actually prescribe you medicines to help get rid of that. But when you're dealing with viruses, it's a completely different ballgame. There's nothing you can really do about it medically. And a lot of people will say, hey, if this isn't so bad, then, why are all these people dying? Well, a lot of that is misreported information. And that's one of the things that confuses me, because a lot of companies are trying to attack people for misinformation, but there's a difference between spreading the truth and spreading misinformation. Just because you don't agree with something doesn't mean it's wrong. And anybody can look at anything that they don't approve of, and you can say that it's wrong, but that doesn't make it wrong. So the big thing is, you should really do your own research and not just believe what one certain media source is telling you, because that's not always going to be 100% accurate. You can look it up through Google search, and you can find every single media source there is out there, and it will tell you whether they are, left-leaning, right-leaning, or impartial. And the big thing is, a lot of them, the ones that are censoring people, are from the left wing, because, well, I'm not really sure because why. I do think that it has a lot of ties to socialism, because in socialism, you're required to believe what the government is telling you, and everything else is wrong. And that's not what our founding fathers stood for. And it's ridiculous that our country has come to that. But on to some of the articles that I read personally. In the state of Massachusetts, as of June 12th, 3,791 fully vaccinated, which means they had both shots of either Moderna, Pfizer, or Johnson. I think Johnson & Johnson has one now. But those 3,791 people that were fully vaccinated tested positive for the virus out of the 3.7 million that have been vaccinated in that state. And that's alarming, which, once again, I had a doctor tell me directly that even if you get the vaccine, you can still get the virus. They say it's not as serious, but you can still get it, and that kind of defeats the purpose of a vaccine. When we were growing up, you had to have certain vaccines in order to go to school, and it's still that way. And if you have those vaccines, you don't get the illness. So the fact that these vaccines are not 100% cannot guarantee 100% immunity is very concerning to me personally. And another thing that worries me is the effects of this vaccine, which I'll go ahead and tell you now. One of the articles that I also read said that the CDC has reported 1,226 cases of heart inflammation in adolescents and young adults following Moderna and Pfizer vaccine. Most follow Pfizer. 267 followed the first dose of the vaccine. 309 patients were hospitalized, and 9 patients still remain in the hospital. That's a little alarming to me, personally. If you create a medicine, a vaccine, or anything, there should be time for long-term testing. But right now, they don't know anything about these vaccines, the side effects, or anything. And apparently, they're learning the hard way. Because, following that report, the Food and Drug Administration came forward and announced these risks and said that they will be added to the fact sheets for the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. And this is just short-term effects. We still don't know what the long-term effects of these vaccines will be. And it's alarming that a lot of places are requiring these vaccines. I've seen a lot of articles talking about schools flirting with the idea of requiring you to be vaccinated to return to school. And they actually have the ability to do that. And there's rules in some states where if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. But if you aren't vaccinated, you have to wear a mask. And to me, that's going to create a lot of confusion, because how do you know who's vaccinated and who's not? You're going to have to take this long process of investigating each individual student to make sure that they have the vaccine or they don't have the vaccine. So it's hard to say that these things are going to be common sense. I mean, you can't say, wow, you don't have to wear a mask if you've not been vaccinated. Or you don't have to wear a mask if you've had the vaccine, but if you haven't, you need to wear your mask. Okay, well, how do you know? Unless you ask every single person. I mean, now, I know my mother, she was convinced to take the vaccine from her doctor. And they gave her paperwork after she had the vaccine to download an app on her phone that would prove that she's had this vaccine. I've seen the cards floating around on the internet, and I've made the comment several times about, correlating the cards and all this other things to what the Nazis had in Germany with the papers. Let me see your papers, and that's, whether you agree with that statement or not, it is similar. I mean, the Nazis had paperwork for every single person, and they had to have that paperwork with them at all times. You're going to have this paper saying that you've had this vaccine with you at all times. So for anybody to disagree and laugh at that statement just proves how manipulated people are. You can't. My big thing is, you can't be educated. Okay. If you go through school and you only know what the school is teaching you from the textbooks, you're not educated, because the textbooks aren't always 100% accurate to the detail. There was a movie with Jeff Bridges in it, and they asked him a question about why does he think America is the greatest country in the world? And that's one of the things he said. I mean, you had the Civil War, North and South. The North won, but the South wrote the history of the Civil War. And if you are guilty of a crime, I don't care who you are, you're not going to come out and say, hey, I committed this crime. I mean, you're not. And there's several arguments about the Civil War, whether it was over slavery or, you know, loyalty to your state and things like that. Nobody really knows for sure. You can't point your finger at one thing because there were so many people involved in that decision to secede from the Union. Just because Jim was a slave owner and he wanted to succeed from the Union because he felt like Abraham Lincoln would free the slaves, doesn't mean that Bob, who doesn't own slaves and is just fighting in this war, wanting to succeed and fight in this war because the Northern Army is marching through his state and opening fire on people in his state. You can't tell me that either one thing is the exact reason. I'm sure there were people that wanted to fight for slavery, to keep slavery, and I'm sure there were people that fought just to be fighting, defending their home. So you can't really say one thing or another. But what you can say is, no matter how you look at it, in the South, you had slaves that were fighting side by side with their slave owners, and that were slaves and they were fighting, with regular troops. And then you had in the North where slaves or freed slaves were put in a separate unit, and the only people in that unit were slaves or free slaves. And because the white people in the North didn't trust the slaves or the free slaves enough to let them fight alongside them. So there was a lot of, I've always been told that racism is a Southern thing. No, it's not. It's an everywhere thing. And no matter what you think or what you believe, it's not always white people racist against black people or black people racist against white people. It's just a common thing, unfortunately. And a lot of the issues are very ignorant, if you ask me. I mean, you've got, it doesn't matter what color a person's skin is, where they come from, how they live. If they're from America, or if they've immigrated to America legally, they are an American, and nothing else should matter. And a lot of reason for the success that we had military wise was because in the early days of this country was because we, as humans, didn't look at each other that way. We were Americans, and that's all that mattered. You would defend your brother no matter what. And we kind of got away from that after World War II. And that's probably why we haven't succeeded in any kind of military conflict or war or whatever you want to call it since. That's just facts. Didn't win South Korea. Didn't win in Vietnam. Didn't fully win in Desert Storm. Didn't fully win in Iraq. I mean, we've not won an actual military conflict since World War II. And World War II was a combined effort from everybody. I mean, it wasn't just it wasn't just white people fighting in World War II. There were several people there contributing from all different countries. And they didn't care. You know, white people didn't care. Or didn't look down on the black people that were fighting beside them. The black people didn't look down on the white people fighting beside them. And that's the big issue is because for some reason things have gone in reverse, and now people are saying that there's a lot of racial injustice in America. And I believe personally that it doesn't matter who you are, what you do defines you. So if you go to college, you have the same opportunity as everyone else that went to college. But if you don't want to go to college, then you can't expect to drop out of high school and make $100,000 a year. You can't expect to graduate high school and make $100,000 a year. I'm sure it's possible, but you have to work for what you get. So that's what I believe anyway, and I don't know why I went so far off topic there, but mainly my issue with the coronavirus vaccine is it should be left up to the individual, whether they are vaccinated or not. And it should be left up to the individual whether they wear a mask or not. Forcing somebody to wear a mask is not the government's place. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that a government can demand people do certain things. No, that is the opposite of the Declaration of Independence. That definitely violates our inalienable rights as humans. Because we all have those rights to make decisions for ourselves. And that's my big issue with the coronavirus vaccine at the current time is don't tell me I have to get it. Don't bribe me to get it by saying if you get it, you don't have to wear a mask anymore. I don't wear a mask anyway, and I'm not going to. When they first started reporting on the virus, they made it out to be like the deadliest virus ever, worse than Ebola, and it's not. It's nothing like that. It's a common cold, and they say, well, all these people are dying from it. Well, that information is not completely accurate. I think at one time the reports were that it was, I think, less than 10% of the deaths reported by coronavirus. I think it was less than 10% of them were actual completely linked to the coronavirus. Most of the people that passed had underlying conditions. If you give an old person the flu, their immune system's not that strong, and if they've got lung problems, lung cancer, or throat cancer or something like that, 9 times out of 10 they're not going to make it through. And you can't say that somebody died from the virus when they didn't really die from the virus. I mean, yeah, the virus didn't help, but there's a good possibility that they might not have made it much longer anyway. So I disagree with the whole vaccine issue. Once it's been out for a while and been tested and further, and there's proof of the effects of this virus or vaccine, and we know what the long-term effects of the vaccine are, yeah, I might consider getting it then, but not now. You can't force somebody to do something. And I'm not saying, anything bad about people that have gotten the vaccine. I mean, because the government, the media outlets are making this virus out to be something that it's not. And it's scaring a lot of people, and that's the whole purpose of socialism, is to scare people. Hitler did it. He scared millions of Germans. He made them scared of Jews. So now you've got the same thing going on here in America. And once again, he's tying it to Nazis. It's so out there. There's no way. But, I mean, prove me wrong. Show me documented proof that what we're seeing now is not similar to what Germans saw before Hitler or during Hitler's rise to power. Prove me wrong. Fidel Castro, he was a socialist at first. Then he became a dictator. Ask a Cuban American or an American citizen that came from Cuba or a American citizen that fled Venezuela. Ask them what socialism looks like. A lot of the people in Florida Democrats predicted to destroy Trump in Florida, and they didn't, because a lot of the people in Florida that were from Cuba or from Venezuela voted against Biden because they knew what socialism was or is, and they didn't want it. When you see monuments being taken down, regardless of what you believe, like Civil War monuments, I mean, I don't really want to get into that, but I think you should know facts about people before you completely eliminate things. I know a lot of the cancel culture crap is getting on to Quaker. They're wanting Quaker to take the the Quaker guy off the oatmeal boxes. Well, Quakers were, because they said that he was a racist symbol. Yeah, in the early days, Quakers were slave traders, but they were never slave owners. And they were against slavery quite a bit, especially once Dutch citizens moved to America. They were definitely against slavery. So I'm confused on, I mean, yeah, they were slave traders, so yeah, that part, but not every part. So it's kind of like the Civil War thing. Again, you can't sit there and narrow things down to one certain thing. So that's just common sense. Anyway, moving on. Each show I will have a segment where I pretty much pick a topic and complain about it or rant about it. And for today, I chose a very popular topic, and I don't know how this will go. Either way, I really don't care. But today, I'm going to be talking about the app TikTok. TikTok is a social media outlet. You make short videos and share them with other people on the app. It's owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance. It was originally released in September of 2016 in China and became available worldwide after they merged with another Chinese-owned company app called Musical.ly. And that was on August 2nd of 2018. TikTok is currently banned in India and Pakistan. India, it's more of like a border issues. And with Pakistan, it's for content that they think is indecent or immoral. Also, a lot of people probably aren't aware of this, but in March of 2020, internal documents were leaked to a paper called The Intercept. And those documents revealed that moderators were instructed to suppress posts by users they said were too ugly, too poor, or too disabled, or disabled, period. And if that's not enough of an issue, that's enough for me to completely that's ridiculous. Who gives any one person the right to decide what's ugly and what's beautiful? You have no rights to say that. And if you think that you have those abilities, then you're an absolute moron. But that's the way things work in social media. They think that they have the ability to decide. These companies and these owners think they have the ability to decide what's right and what's wrong, when they're an outlet for social media and they really have no rights to declare anything right or wrong. It's supposed to be an open form of expression of yourself. And that's another thing that I hate is when you're commenting or you're posting something about your beliefs and somebody attacks you on your own post or attacks your comment. I mean, come on. It's you have the right to formulate your opinion on social media. That's what it's for. So that's another day, another topic for another day. But with TikTok, there's a lot of popular trends that are on TikTok or that were born from TikTok that have proven to be fatal. That's another reason why I don't like TikTok. And some of those were the dry scoop challenge, where people were challenged to eat a scoop of protein powder without milk or water or anything. Just eat it straight out the tub. And something about it was supposed to get in your bloodstream quicker and this, that, and the other. Well, it got into somebody's bloodstream too quick and she had a heart attack. So you've got people out there that are trying to get people to do things and they're not healthy. So I'm not saying tell your kids not to do TikTok, but I'm saying pay attention and make sure your kids trust you enough to actually ask your advice on whether they should or should do things, especially these challenges. There was a barber on TikTok that put out a video for a full face wax. And basically, he put straws in their nose and one in their mouth and covered their whole face, their whole head with wax. And you know, it doesn't take much for somebody to accidentally get some of that wax in those straws, and then you're pretty much suffocating and or being smothered. And plus, too, there's a big risk of the wax getting into your air passages, which is definitely not a good thing at all. And then there's the blackout challenge. I know a lot of people have heard of this one for some reason. Somebody thought it would be cool to pass around on TikTok and dare people pretty much to choke themselves until they pass out. That's a little wild. And I don't understand why anyone would be you're manipulating people, especially children. You put something on there for a child to see, which technically children under the age of 18 are not supposed to be on there. I think it is 16 or 18. But, they're on there and you're giving them this platform where they see people do something and they want to do it. And once again, they're not comfortable enough talking to their parents about it, and they do it, and then, there could be there could be tragedy involved. I mean, there was recently a 12 and 13-year-old that died doing the blackout challenge. So, yeah, you got to use common sense, and you got to form a relationship with your children enough to make them see things differently, or at least form a relationship with them where they will talk to you about things that they've seen on TikTok and ask for your advice on whether or not they should do them, and pay attention enough to your child to, so if they do ask you that you're paying attention and you do listen to what they're saying. That's a big issue, I think. Another one is called the Outlet Challenge, and to me, this one is just common sense. You should know. Any person should know not to do this. But it involves taking a cell phone charger and plugging it like halfway into the outlet where a little bit of it, the prongs are sticking out, and then you take change and throw it at it. And when the change hits it, little sparks will fly out like a firework, pretty much. And there's been a lot of issues with house fires because of that, and that's just you should expect that. So a lot of people are just not informed enough to make logical decisions, and somebody should be teaching this stuff in like school science class or something. I mean, that's just common sense. Hey, don't mess with outlets or circuits. First of all, I mean, you should learn that as a toddler. You see your toddler walking around trying to put stuff in an outlet, and you correct that behavior, but somehow you didn't fully correct it because now you got kids burning your house down because they don't understand the dangers of electricity. So that's TikTok for you. It's very crazy, and I hear all the time that, oh, I heard this on TikTok. I'm like, okay, so you heard it on TikTok. Does that mean it's true? And a lot of people actually believe everything they hear, everything they see, everything they read. That's the power of social media. And a lot of people are not doing their own research, and they believe what they're told. And that's one of the things that one of the powers that Hitler had over people. He told people lies long enough and repetitive enough that they actually started to believe them. So, if your child has TikTok, make sure that you check up on them and they're not doing anything outrageous. I would encourage them not to do any of the challenges, because not very many of them make any kind of sense. I pulled up a whole list of these challenges, and not one of them was actually safe. So That's just how I feel about TikTok. I think it's dangerous, crazy, and you're giving people that have no common sense a platform to convince people to do stupid things. And when it's a child and their mind is easily manipulated, they're going to do it. And, now you've got children passing away because of this stuff, and you've got families who are homeless because of this stuff. So just make sure you keep an eye on your kids. That's my advice. I hate TikTok. I wish, it would just die out like Vine did, because it's basically just a cheap knockoff of Vine. But that's my opinion. So that was today's rant. Now let's move on to another segment. All right, now we're moving on to a segment called Fight or Flight. In this segment, I'm going to cover pretty much confrontations that happen in the political arena, and discuss those topics, and give my input on them. Once again, this is my input, my opinion, and I try to back up a lot of the statements I make with factual evidence as much as I can. So, fight or flight. Here we go. Today, we're going to be talking about the Texas State Democrats. There was a bill that was scheduled to be voted on in Texas, and it was a voter reform bill, basically saying that you had to produce an ID or your social security card and to vote. But it wasn't your whole card, and I don't even know if you had to produce your whole card or produce a card at all. You just had to have the last 4 digits of your social security number. And the Democrat lawmakers in Texas decided that they were going to fly to Washington, D.C. instead of being in Texas to vote on that bill. And they flew to Washington to meet with Kamala Harris, where she told them that they were how wonderful and great they were, and how they were standing up for Americans because that bill was voter suppression. Well, calling that bill voter suppression, I've heard one commentator, a Democrat commentator, state that black people don't have or don't drive as much as white people, so they don't have a license. And I'm trying to figure out how that is actually plausible. That really doesn't make any sense at all. Everybody has the opportunity to operate a motor vehicle, and all you have to do is go to your local DMV and get your driver's license. Most of the time you have to take a test, a written test and a driving test. In North Carolina, you take a sign test after you've gotten your license the first time. When you go to renew it, all you have to do is take a sign test and a vision test. And so saying that minorities don't drive as much as white people do, that's it's very stereotypical, and probably racist. I mean, I don't agree with that statement whatsoever. And it's kind of like the statement that Joe Biden made about the coronavirus vaccine, where he said that, you know, a lot of black people don't know how to use the internet. That's just, it doesn't make any sense. You can't categorize people and say that this group does this better and that group does that better, especially if you're calling yourselves warriors for social justice, or if you're trying to make it out to where you're against slavery, because that's pretty much slavery. I think it was Frederick Douglass that said the only way to free yourself from slavery is by knowledge. And the more you know, the more free you really are. And that's why I really encourage people to stop believing everything you hear or read from one certain source, and gather multiple sources of information, and don't subjectify yourself to one source. There's a lot of fact checking stuff going on with Facebook, and it's really confusing because the people that are doing the fact checking are media outlets that are very partial, biased, and why would they say that something that is against a certain belief of one person is not a fact? I mean, that's just counterproductive for them. So, yeah, I don't really agree with either of those statements. The problem is whether they want to admit to it or not. If you are an American citizen, you are required to have a Social Security number. And in order to vote in an American election, you have to be an American citizen. Bar none, no exceptions. So, what doesn't make sense about someone trying to make it a requirement that you are an American citizen, and for you to prove that you're an American citizen? How is that suppression? The suppression is when you're suppressing votes, it's like what pretty much what the South did, Southern Democrats did during post-Civil War era, because they had a bunch of requirements to vote, and they knew that the newly freed slaves did not know how to meet those requirements. Like, signing your name. A lot of during slavery, a lot of slave owners did not allow their slaves to become educated. If you deny someone an education, then they're your slave. They're your puppet. They believe what you tell them and nothing else. That is a fundamental right of an American citizen. No one else deserves that right to vote in an American election. I guarantee you, if you go down to Mexico and say, "Oh, I want to vote in your election," I guarantee you they're going to laugh in your face. And not even Mexico, Canada. There's all kinds, any country that has open democracy. You can't go to their country and vote unless you are a citizen. And each country has their own definition of citizenship. So I'm trying to understand how this is wrong to require that you show proof that you're a citizen to vote. If you're a citizen, you shouldn't have an issue proving that. You have to prove that when you go fill out a job application. You have to prove that when you rent a property, when you purchase a car, when you purchase a property. You have to do that. In order to get a credit card, you have to give them your social security number. So if you don't have that, then you don't have the right to participate in an American election. That is pretty much the whole background of this country. And I can understand, years ago when not everybody had a social security number, but now everybody has one. So it's not that hard. And then another fight or flight topic we have is a big one right now between Dr. Fauci, Anthony Fauci, and Dr. Rand Paul, who was a senator. I'm sure a lot of people have seen these clips on Facebook or other places. The big thing is Dr. Rand Paul is accusing Dr. Fauci of funding gain-of-function research through the NIH. The NIH defines gain-of-function research as taking a virus that is only transmissible in one animal and increasing its transmissibility into another animal. Which basically means if you're in China, in Wuhan, in a lab somewhere, for instance, and you have a bat that has a coronavirus, and you inject proteins into that bat, into that virus, and now that virus can be transmitted to humans, that's gain-of-function research, basically. Perfect example. And Dr. Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul, said basically, Dr. Fauci, since you're aware that lying to Congress is a crime, would you like to redact your statement that Dr. Fauci made earlier about him not funding gain-of-function research, when there's clear proof that the NIH was funding that lab in Wuhan. And so far, I don't know if there's any actual paper trail as to where that money went, but if you're giving an entire lab money, they probably split it up into different research projects. That's just common sense. You give a school, the state gives a school $200,000. They're not just going to take it and improve one thing in the whole school and basically blow off the rest of the school. I mean, they have to divide that money equally in between each particular category, and do each different research project and do each different subject. So, when that paper trail becomes evident, then it will clearly prove that Dr. Anthony Fauci is lying about knowledge of funding that research project. But Dr. Fauci claims that Rand Paul doesn't know what he's talking about.
An animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans,
right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially.
And that he's oblivious. And it basically, to me, it's him implying that Rand Paul is incompetent. Why would a doctor call another doctor incompetent? Or why would they get so upset if they're being accused of something they didn't do by another doctor? I mean, if you're innocent, completely innocent of a charge, why would you get upset? Tell me that. If I get pulled over for speeding and I'm doing the speed limit, I'm not going to sit there and cuss out the cop because he pulled me over. I'm going to be polite and, speak with the officer and figure out what's going on. So, maybe Fauci should have done that. But in this case, I decided to do a little research into the educations of both of these doctors to pretty much see which one of them actually has the better education. And, usually if you have a better education, then you have more knowledge in a subject than someone else. I'm not going to go out there and walk up to a diesel mechanic and say, whoa, you're wrong. Let me show you how to do this. I don't know much about diesel engines. I mean, I know a little bit, but I'm not going to sit there and completely discredit someone else. So, for their educations, it has Dr. Anthony Fauci as attending the College of Holy Cross and the Will Cornell Medical School. Dr. Rand Paul, attended the Duke University School of Medicine and Baylor University. Now, I went online and I found a website that has ranked the top 191 colleges, medical colleges, in their pretty much in their educational value, which college has the best program. And going through that list, I found out that for Dr. Anthony Fauci, College of Holy Cross was not even on there. And Will Cornell Medical Schools was 19th on that list out of 191. For Dr. Rand Paul, Baylor University was number 22nd. So Cornell is 3 higher than Baylor. So, maybe Fauci has an argument there, but College of Holy Cross is not even ranked at all. And Duke University School of Medicine, where Rand Paul studied, is the third best program in the country. So even the average of average rank of both of the schools that Rand Paul attended is better than the schools that Dr. Anthony Fauci attended. So obviously, Rand Paul has the better education. So, you know, maybe he does know what he's talking about. And maybe Dr. Anthony Fauci should actually tell the truth. That's just my opinion. I don't I mean, if it would have went the other way, you know, maybe I would have obviously said, you know, maybe Anthony Fauci has a valid argument, but the proof is in the facts, and the facts all point to Rand Paul. So maybe Dr. Fauci should rethink his statements. I think that would be more logical at this point. And then to close tonight's show, we're going to talk about some entertainment, because I don't want this all to be political. I want to be able to get some involvement with my viewers. So I'm going to do a segment each week before this segment, and I'm going to respond to comments or questions that any of my viewers might have. Or if you want to tag me in an article and get me to talk about it, then you're welcome to do so, and I will research it and get back with you. So anyway, let's look at the entertainment section here. This is going to be my top 5 movie choices for, I'm going to pick 2 genres or 1 genre a week and divide it into 2 categories pretty much. This week I chose horror. Really big horror fan. And I'm going to pretty much give out my top 5. They're going to go backwards. Obviously, the number 1 movie is like lower on the list, like lower as my favorite, and the number 5 movie would be my favorite. And then I'm also going to give each movie a star rating based on my personal experience. So let's start this off with horror. Actually, let's do the low budget horror first. These are films that were pretty much filmed with a low budget. Sometimes it might be what they call a B movie, or it might be like a major production company made the movie. But number 1 on my list for low budget horror is a movie called Would You Rather. It's a very interesting movie. It's very unique. Basically, a wealthy man invites people to his home, and they play a game of Would You Rather. And the person that's left in the end of the movie, or at the end of the game, is given a pretty large amount of money. And this movie has a really good twist ending, and it was really, I mean, it's not like one of those on your feet all the time scary movies. It's a very, it's like a thriller more, but it is a pretty good movie to my opinion, and I gave that movie 4 stars. I liked it. Number 2 on my list is the movie Frozen, not the Disney Frozen. This one is about some friends. I think one of them's two of them are dating, and their friend comes along, and they go skiing at a ski resort, and they end up getting stuck at the ski resort on a chairlift going up to a slope, and they're pretty much suspended in the air, and the ski resort is closed for that, I think, like a whole week. It's only open on the weekends or something like that, and so they're stuck up there. It's cold. You're going to be worried about frostbite and freezing to death and all that. But it's a really good thriller movie. Like it, once again, it's not like completely scary 24/7. The whole movie, it's got some parts in it. It's a thriller movie. It's not really a scary movie, but it is a horror movie. It's listed as a horror movie. But I gave that one 3 stars, and watch it if you've never seen it. It's pretty good. 3. Most people's probably seen this. It's Paranormal Activity. This movie was filmed on a low budget. But the first one I thought was really good. They started getting a little crazy there as the movies went on. But to me, the first one was actually a really good movie. It was pretty unique. I really enjoyed it. And it's about a couple that moves into a home, and weird things start happening, and the guy decides to film it, and kind of antagonizes it, and that's never a good thing. So I'm going to give that movie 3.2 stars. It's a really good movie. It is actually got stuff going on throughout the whole movie, so pretty good movie. Number 4 is a movie called Hush. I don't know if you've ever seen this one or not. It's a really good movie as well. The reason why I put it number 4 is because it's unique. It's something different. It's about a deaf girl that stayed in a cabin, and I don't know how to talk about this one without giving too much away, but pretty much she's staying in this cabin, and a psycho comes and starts harassing her. And of course, she's deaf. She can't hear. She can't call the police because he cuts the power and all this, that, and the other. So she's kind of stuck there with no way to communicate with anybody. So it's a really good movie, really good thriller. There's constantly something going on. It's more like a cat and mouse game. It's pretty cool. Very unique concept. I gave that one 3 stars. And 5th, to me, the best low budget horror movie probably ever, just my opinion, is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, not the remake. Really good movie. I'm pretty sure everybody knows what this is about. But I've gotten into so many arguments with people about this movie because this movie is based on a true story or inspired by a true story. It's not really, there was no chainsaw wielding freak in Texas. There may have been since then, but the movie was based off of a real life serial killer by the name of Ed Gein, who was pretty weird. He was pretty sick, digging up dead bodies, peeling the skin off, making a suit out of it. Very fascinated with women. Had a suit that was completely comprised of women's skin. He had a necklace that was made out of, I think, vaginas and nipples. It was kind of weird. But yeah, The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a really good film. I ranked it 4.6 stars. Pretty good movie, especially considering it was a low budget movie, and but I mean it was really a unique concept at the time, and I mean it's one of the classics, one of the really big classics out there. All right, so let's move on to horror. This is my top 5 favorite horror films of all time. And I'm going to start off with number 1, which is The Conjuring. The original Conjuring, the first Conjuring. The only thing I don't like about these movies is they kind of go away from what actually happened with Ed and Lorraine Warren. This one kind of stays more towards the true story. Some of them drift quite a bit away, but this one was pretty close. Really good film. It was my favorite of the 3 so far. The newest one, it was okay, but it just wasn't. It didn't have that magic that first one had, and then it's always hard to top the original, basically, in my opinion. And I gave this movie 3.5 stars. Pretty good ranking. Number 2 on my list is a film called Insidious. This is a really good movie. It's a really good concept. Something quite original. It deals with astral projection. Basically, the boy in the movie is a family. They have 2 children. The oldest, I think it's 2, might be 3. One of the boys has the ability to astro project, and while he's asleep, and he gets stuck in the next world or the next reality or whatever, and they're trying to get him out. So, really good movie, really original, and I gave that one 3.5 stars. Number 3 on my list is the movie Sinister. The original, it was a really, really awesome concept. It dealt with a demon who pretty much convinced children to murder their entire family and film it. And I guess once that was done, then the demon took their soul and they were stuck with him for eternity. And in the original, the guy is a horror or a true crime novelist, and he is researching a new crime that was committed, and ends up moving his family into the home where the crime was committed. Most of the time, they talk about different things, like different books he's written, and most of them they move around the home where the crime was, but they never actually moved in it. This one, they moved in it, kind of ticked his wife off, but that was a really good movie. It was really original. I gave that movie 4 stars. And that's number 3 on my list. And then number 4. This is kind of like part of the Conjuring franchise, I guess. It's a movie connected with those movies. But to me, it's the best of the spinoffs of those movies. And that is Annabelle Comes Home. Really like that movie. To me, it's the best Annabelle movie there is, and it's it pretty much dives into the origins of Annabelle. But it's not, well, it doesn't dive into the origin of Annabelle. It dives into how the doll affects people, pretty much. I don't think this one is actually factual or anywhere close to the real story, but it was just a pretty cool movie for me. And like I said, it was probably one of the best of those Conjuring spinoffs. And I gave that one 4.5 stars. And number 5, the best horror movie to me, period, bar none. The Exorcist, the original. Really good movie. Really good movie. Probably the scariest movie I've ever seen of all time. If you want to be scared, that's the movie to watch. And it was just amazing. And I know that there's been several movies since then, spin-offs and sequels, and I think there was 2 prequels. But to me, that was just a really good movie. It was a different movie. And I don't know, it was a very captivating experience. You're drawn into this movie and you're watching these things happen, and it really puts the battle of good and evil at the forefront. And of course, I ranked this one the highest ranking I have given, or probably will give, as 5 stars. And here's an exciting note about The Exorcist. Look for it soon. Blumhouse, the company, is looking to produce a sequel to the original Exorcist. Not the sequel that came out after the movie. This is their version of a sequel. It's not the same as the second one in the franchise or whatever, but this is their second one. It's pretty much going to throw out every movie except The Exorcist, the original. And to me, the coolest part of it is Ellen Burstyn is going to reprise her role as Chris McNeil, Reagan's mother. So I wish Reagan was back, obviously, but I'm always excited when they bring in, when the older characters come back. And this is a big deal to me, because, this is somebody that played such a crucial part in the original movie, and she's going to be in a sequel. And to me, Blumhouse does a pretty good job with the movies that they do. They did a really good job with the Truth or Dare movie that they came out with. So I'm really excited to see this one. And it's going to be pretty good. I mean, I anticipate it being a really good movie. The only thing I know so far is something about a father-son being possessed, and he seeks out Chris McNeil to speak with her about Reagan's possession. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will definitely try to do this again real soon.